Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. Before we begin today's session, a reminder that tomorrow's class in the Target Prelims 2022 crash course at 7:30 p.m. will be of Polity. This is class number 4 of Indian Polity taken by Sarmat sir. So do join in and make sure that your polity preparation is up to the mark. Now let's begin our comprehensive news analysis with the first article that talks about the plight of the outdoor workers in this severe heat wave that is going across the country. Now, as you know, citizens in most part of India are experiencing severe heat waves with the temperatures going around 45 to 46 degrees Celsius. This is especially hard on those people who have to work outdoors to earn their daily wages. These include the construction workers. These even include the delivery boys that come to your house to deliver food, be it Swiggy, Zomato, etc. These are the daily wage workers who have to be on the roads to sell vegetables, to sell daily goods products, and these are the people who are getting the short end of the bargain. These are the people who cannot afford any relief. They cannot stay at home thinking that it's too hot outside because their life depends on earning day-to-day wages. Now, the authors here are making a point that because it is not possible for these people to stay at home, it is now the government's responsibility to give them enough safety nets. Now, what are safety nets? Safety nets can be number one, making sure that there are enough insurance schemes that are available for them that cover the problem of heat strokes, etc. Now, many of you would have medical insurance now, but these medical insurance policies usually do not cover these kind of issues that can happen due to severe heat wave, like heat stroke, etc. So, as per the author, the government should make sure that insurance schemes specifically for those people who are working outside in this cruel weather includes these kind of benefits. Secondly, the government can also adopt a system of direct benefit transfer. For example, transferring money to those kind of workers like farmers, etc., who are doing their bit to reduce the pollution around them, to bring down the effect of global warming around them. That can be linked to the efforts made by the farmers and other workers to build resilience against climate change. That can also bring in a change in the agricultural practices in the long run. And India is not alone in this. In fact, if you look at countries across South Asia right now, the intensity and the frequency of heat waves has been increasing very frequently over the past few years. Right now, in the last 100 years, the global temperatures have risen by 1.5 degrees Celsius, and it is expected that they can rise by 4 degrees Celsius by 2100, which is a very dangerous sign, again, especially for those people who have no option but to work outside. Now, there are a lot of reasons which have led to this. First, yes, this is the greenhouse gas effect, and others, the humankind itself is not doing any favors by not making sure that these temperatures don't rise enough. The practices of deforestation, the practices of environmental pollution, and not giving any consideration to our environment has all added up to this problem. So, there are a lot of man made reasons behind the problems that we are facing right now, and it extends beyond Asia. The article says that heat waves are proving to be Europe's deadliest climate disaster as well. Because the people are falling ill, there are many people who are even losing their life. The worldwide economic loss because of this heat wave could reach up to 1.6 trillion US dollars if the global warming exceeds 2 degrees Celsius. Now, the sad part is that there is no short term solution with anyone right now. There is no technology anywhere in the world which we can use, and all of a sudden, everything will become normal and the temperatures will start to cool down. However, it is a gradual process and we need to start as soon as possible. The article says that countries which are big emitters, be it the US, European Union, China, India, all of these have the responsibility to lower down their emissions because this is what leads to the atmosphere warming up even further. The heat waves that we are facing are also because of deforestation, which have led to a lot of wildfires as we are seeing around the world in nations such as Australia as well. Although we do have a lot of laws against deforestation, for example, India has the CAMPA, under which if you cut down a forest, you will have to compensate by putting up more trees in some other areas. But scientific studies have suggested that it does not have the same impact as we hope for. The other steps that the Indian government can do is maybe do financial transfers to those farmers who want to plant more trees and buy equipment which are better suited for this extreme weather. In this kind of a weather, it is almost impossible to go out in the afternoon and engage in agricultural activities unless you want to bring danger to your own life. So we have to give alternatives to farmers also to make good use of machines so that they don't have to go outside and they can mechanize their farming activities. Insurance against natural hazards, etc., should also be covered in India so that the impact of this climate change and the heat waves is not reaching till the end of the supply chain. The future does not really look good because the IMD has suggested that the future scenarios of these kind of heat waves will only increase, and that is why we need action steps to be taken not at the center or at the state government but even at the district government level, because at the end of the day it is a poor population that is the worst affected by it. We are lucky enough to be able to sit inside our houses, maybe under a fan, or even better if it is under an air conditioner. But there is a major population of India which cannot afford this, and if they do sit under a shade, they will just let go of their entire salary for the day. So, for those poor people who are at the receiving end of this climate change and this heat wave, the government has an added responsibility to ensure that they are financially supported by the government of India. Now, there is no official survey as such with the government of India that takes into account how many Indian workers are employed outdoors and indoors. However, considering that certain occupations such as the daily wage workers, such as agriculture, such as delivery boys, etc., those are considered as outdoor occupations. On the basis of that, there have been some studies conducted that about 49% of Indian workers are employed outdoors. Again, I am repeating, this is not any official government data of outdoor workers, but this is just an assumption being made on how many people are employed in those kind of activities, which usually are undertaken outdoors. Now, because this is such a huge population which is being forced to work outdoors because of their occupation, the government has to have the sense of responsibility towards them. Now, when I researched about this topic more, I found out a very interesting report by the ILO, International Labour Organization. So, there is a report on the website of ILO that talks about the heat stress, that is, the impact of heat on workers around the world. So, it was not just India centric report, it was a report that talked about different regions, Africa, Asia, America, Pacific, etc., and how the heat wave is making the lives of the workers very, very difficult. From that report, I have taken two examples to show you who are the people who are the worst affected by this. The report gives an example of brick makers in India specifically. As you know, the brick making industry that employs millions of people need the people to work in very, very harsh conditions where they are working near the brick kiln, which are at a very, very high temperature. They are in constant touch with the heat source, heavy physical workload, and most of them are not even permanent workers. And that is why throughout the year, and not just in the heat wave, they are exposed to temperatures of 40, 45 degree or even more. The report says that for increase of every 1 degree Celsius of temperature in the working conditions, it resulted in a 2% loss of productivity. As per the survey, the workers took short breaks of 10-15 minutes in the shade when they were fully exhausted and then they returned back to work after that. Many of these workers suffered from stress, peak heart rate, cardiac strain, and many other things. The Government of India, as per this report, does have a couple of laws about it. For example, the Factories Act of 1948 and the Building and Other Construction Workers Act of 1996. However, the report says that these are not enough and do not really protect all the workers who are engaged in these industries. So, just an indication of how the heat wave is impacting different people differently depending upon their occupation. The same ILO report also gives us interesting table which tells how exactly is the increasing heat across the world impacting the sustainable development goals of the UN. This table makes a goal of the 13 goals that will be severely impacted by the rise in temperature throughout the world. Let me give you a few examples. For example, the goal number 4 is to ensure quality education. Now, students who are heat exposed and the teachers who are heat exposed are much less likely to concentrate on education. I'll give you a very simple example. See, it is very easy to say that if you're a good child, you can concentrate anywhere, you can read in the morning, you can read in the evening, and the situation does not really bother you. But we all know that is not true. If a child is sitting in a room in the month of May, June, in peak summers where there is no electricity, even the fan is not working, just understand the mindset of that child. And then there is a child who is in a air conditioned classroom, who has all the facilities around him or her, would the child in an air conditioned classroom be able to focus better, or would the other child be able to focus better? Or are they in a same position? No, they're obviously not in the same position. So you have to ensure that if you want to provide quality education, you have to ensure that the circumstances around the students also are tailored made for them to focus only on education. Similarly, as per this table, heat also has an impact on gender equality also, because pregnancy, for example, adds to the risk of heat exposure. Good health and well-being, no poverty, all of these goals are impacted by the rising heat stress around the world as per the ILO report. The next article that we have is about Prime Minister Modi's recently concluded Europe visit of 3 days. As you know, Prime Minister Modi was on a Europe visit where he covered three nations, starting with Denmark, after which he went to Germany and then to France. As we all know, out of these three nations, India probably shares the deepest and the closest relationship with France, and that is why the visit of France was kept at the end so that the Prime Minister could talk with the French leaders in detail. And that is what happened. Despite a short meeting, there was a long joint statement being issued by the two sides, India and France, and a lot of topics were discussed. Now, because of the ongoing circumstances, it was very obvious that wherever the Prime Minister goes or whoever comes to India, the top topic or the top agenda will always remain the Ukraine war. And the Prime Minister of India has been successful in conveying India's position in the ongoing war. That is why, apart from the Ukraine war, many other issues are also discussed. It was discussed that the two sides should cooperate on food and agriculture resilience mission to make sure that the rising food prices across the world because of the war are controlled. However, the problem is that because of the severe heat wave, in India also a lot of crops have been damaged. So India's promise of wheat supply to many countries such as Egypt, etc., who actually used to take wheat from Ukraine or Russia, now that also is under danger. So India would have to assess the situation again and see how many crops can we afford to export to bring down the wheat prices across the world. Also, as we have discussed earlier, India and France especially have had a very old and very fruitful relationship which has covered many areas. For example, in 1998 when India conducted the Pokhran test, France was the only Western nation not to condemn India. In fact, France has always been supportive of India joining many other multinational groups. For example, in 2008, France was the first country to conclude a civil nuclear deal with India after the NSG waiver had allowed India to access nuclear fuel and technology. France also has been a constant supplier of weapons, especially with respect to the Indian Air Force. France and India have also been collaborating on nuclear power plants, where France has an agreement to build multiple nuclear power plants in India's Maharashtra. Although that project is delayed for many years, but still, it was France only that got this agreement from India's side. So, all in all, it was a very fruitful visit of Prime Minister Modi to these European nations. However, the one downside to the visit, or the one thing that did not really happen, was that there was no progress on the free trade agreement talks between India and EU. Now, sadly, the free trade agreement talks between India and EU have been going on for over a decade now without any progress in these talks being made in the recent years. The last round of these talks was in 2013, even before Narendra Modi had become the Prime Minister. So it was expected that maybe the two sides will engage a bit on the free trade agreement talks as well, but that did not happen. So that was a bit of disappointment. However, there are certain positive signs coming from the government, with Minister Piyush Goyal recently announcing that India and EU are expected to finalize these talks by the end of next year. So let's see. Hopefully, that will also be concluded in the coming years. Now, as I said earlier, the free trade agreement talks between India and EU have been suspended since 2013. Now, this agreement is officially called the BTIA, that is Bilateral Trade and Investment Agreement. So it would cover not just trade but investment as well. The negotiations had first started in 2007 and it was supposed to include trade in goods, services, and even investment. However, in 2013, the talks broke down, especially on the issue of increased market access and the movement of professionals from one of these nations to the other group of nations. There are some other challenges also, because of which EU has not been very keen on going ahead with these talks. Now, do understand something. When you have such a group such as EU, where we have so many members, as a group to move forward and to sign an agreement with the other nation is not that easy. Because for EU, they have to look into each and every member nation being happy with this agreement, and only then they can go ahead and sign the agreement with India. So amongst EU, you can have France, you can have Germany, you can have some other nations having good relationship with India. But if some other nation, let's say for example Hungary or some other nation which does not really appreciate what India is doing in its market, if they say no, it becomes very difficult for the group as a whole to move forward and sign this agreement. And that is what has happened in the past few years. There are some other challenges also. For example, Indian government's Atmanirbhar Bharat mission is being seen as a protectionist policy by the EU. Protectionist policy means a policy where a country gives preference to its own products, to its own market and its own industry over someone else's, and they try to stop the import of some other commodities to protect their own industry. This goes against the concept of free trade and globalization. That is why some EU countries have not been supportive of this. Then India's labor and environmental standards have also been a matter of concern for EU. Now, EU is one of those places which regard themselves as the leader of the world. They think that they are the ones who know the best for everything, and they are the ones who will set standards that everyone should follow. I'll give you an example. So, EU, for example, say that we will not buy goods from India. Why? Because the people who are making these goods in India, they are not being treated well because they don't have their labor rights. For example, the laborers might not have the kind of insurance that they require, the laborers might not have the kind of salary that they deserve, and because they are making these products, we are not happy with this and we will not consume this. Now, the fact is that it may be detrimental to those workers only. That if you are not buying these products, ultimately they will lose their job, and whatever little money that they were earning earlier, they won't even earn that. But that is how EU thinks, that we will buy only those products that are coming from nations where the laborers are treated well, where everything is hunky dory, and only then we'll buy those. Now, the irony is that they're very happy in buying oil and gas from Russia because that is something without which they cannot live. Russia right now is attacking Ukraine, killing thousands of innocent people, but still most of the European countries are still constantly buying gas from Russia. So when it comes to their own necessity, they have their own standards. But when it comes to something in which they can have some alternatives also, they show their own high standards. So this is why there are certain roadblocks between India and EU in going ahead with the free trade agreement. The good part, however, is that India specifically, as you would have seen in the news, has now been very keen on signing free trade agreements. We are even in talks about the free trade agreement with UK. We concluded the one with Australia recently. We even concluded the one with the UAE recently. And that is why it won't be a surprise if the Indian government goes ahead and seals a free trade agreement, as the government is saying, by next year with EU as well. Now, just to give an idea about the numbers, these are the latest trade numbers between India and EU. This is with respect to EU. So this particular graph will show you what EU has imported from India. So it is about close to 46 billion euros for 2021. EU exports to India close to 41 billion euros. So there is a trade balance in favor of India. This is in terms of good. In terms of services, as expected, the trade balance is even more favorable to India because India is a services powerhouse, and that is why we export services such as IT services, financial services, etc. And that is why the trade balance between India and EU is in favor of India. The next article of importance is about ISRO's Venus mission. Now, usually we read about ISRO's mission to Moon, ISRO's mission to Mars. Venus is not a planet that we hear a lot about in terms of exploration, but it has now again come in the news with not just ISRO but NASA also concentrating on this planet. Now, recently, the ISRO chairman talked about ISRO's Venus mission, and that is why it is in the news. He said that ISRO's mission to Venus will likely cost 500 to 1000 crore rupees, which is extremely cheap if you compare it with the missions taken up by NASA and other Russian organizations and the cost that they have had to incur for this. Now, it is not fixed, but ISRO is saying that 2024 may be the year when they actually send their exploration mission to Venus. Now, one very interesting point that ISRO's chairman has made here is that ISRO has a technology to reach Venus now without any problem. We were able to reach Mars in the first attempt, so reaching Venus would not really be an issue. However, it is not just about reaching Venus. It is about exploring a lot about Venus, and that depends on what are the different types of instrument that we can send to Venus. This is where the delay might happen, and this is where the cost might increase. He specifically said that reaching Venus would really not be an issue. We are just working on what kind of instruments to send to get as much information as possible. He said that India, when we sent the Chandrayaan 1 mission to moon, it was actually India's discovery. We played a major role in finding out that there is water on the moon. But the US scientists took the jump and they were the ones to first announce the findings. Although we should have been getting the credit for that. We can't let that happen with Venus now. So we have to wait slightly and ensure that once we send a mission to Venus, we are all prepared in such a manner that all the important discoveries are made by our mission only, and we are the ones who have to bring it forward to the entire world. And that is why 2024 is not exactly fixed, but ISRO is working towards what can be the best year to send the mission to Venus right now. Now, Venus exploration, as I said earlier, is not something that you see in the news quite a lot. However, there have been multiple missions sent to Venus by multiple nations across the world. Let me give you a brief history about that. So, Venus is a very interesting planet in the sense that it is considered as the twin of the Earth because the size of the two planets is almost the same, the gravity density is almost the same, but this is where all the similarity ends because Venus is the hottest planet in the solar system. So much so that it has a temperature of 850 degree Fahrenheit. It is filled with carbon dioxide, and that is why, because of that greenhouse effect, it is so hot. It is even hotter than Mercury, which is the planet that is the closest to the sun. And that is why it is impossible to have any life in Venus. Now, the first ever spacecraft to explore the Venus planet was actually Russia's Venera 1 in 1961. But after that, when we concluded that it is almost impossible to have any life at Venus, the focus shifted on Mars. However, the entire world's interest got back to Venus when last year NASA announced two new robotic missions for Venus. These two missions were to be launched in 2028-2030. These two are called Veritas and Da Vinci Plus. Now, Da Vinci Plus stands for Deep Atmosphere Venus Investigation of Noble Gases, Chemistry and Imaging. It will gather details about the composition of Venus's atmosphere and learn how it is formed. Veritas, on the other hand, stands for Venus Emissivity, Radioscience, INSA, Topography and Spectroscopy. It will be more about Venus's orbit. So this will be the orbiter part of the mission, while Da Vinci will be the part which will land on Venus and try to gather more information. Before this, Russia, as I said earlier, was the first country to successfully reach Venus with its Venera mission. Another country that has been successful in reaching Venus is Japan. They have their own Akatsuki space probe, which has been given the objective to study the atmosphere of Venus. It entered the Venus orbit in 2015. India's potential Venus mission is called as Shukrayaan 1, as we know. This is still under works and may be launched in 2024. It is the orbiter mission to Venus, so it will not land just like the Mangalyaan. It will only orbit the planet and it will not land on the planet as such. The next article that we have is about the visit of Italian foreign minister to India. Now, of late, ever since the Ukraine-Russia war has started, a lot of foreign diplomats have been visiting India, trying to convince India to change their stand about Russia-Ukraine crisis and also trying to engage with India because India has become an extremely significant country, especially for the commodities that India can now provide, such as wheat, etc., in the international market. As expected, the major point of discussion was the Ukraine crisis. Apart from this, the two sides also collaborated on climate change cooperation, space cooperation, and other things between the two nations. The two sides also discussed implementing the India-Italy strategic partnership on energy transition. Now, Italy is a very interesting country with respect to India. And let me tell you why. See, India and Italy, if you actually see and think about which are the Western nations with which India would have great relations, you don't really think about Italy being the top country. However, there are some interesting pointers about Italy, and I'll give you pointers on both the sides. First, Italy is actually a part of a group called Uniting for Consensus. This is also called the Coffee Club. This is a group which actually opposes the G4, that is India, Japan, Brazil, and Germany. And this group is against the expansion of the UN Security Council. So they don't want the UN Security Council to expand. They don't want countries such as India to get a permanent seat in the UN Security Council. The second issue that I can think about on the top of my mind is the marine issue that we had with Italy. As you know, two Italian marines actually killed an Indian fisherman, and there was a case going on for a long time. India thought that these marines should be punished as per the Indian law. They, in fact, were in the Indian jail for a long time before them being sent back to Italy because of bad health conditions, and now they are not coming back. So, there are some underlying issues between India and Italy as such. However, the interesting part is that if you look on the other side, there are also certain things on which the two sides have collaborated. For example, Italy actually supported India's membership to many important groups such as the MTCR, that is Missile Technology Control Regime, which allowed India to increase the range of the BrahMos missile in collaboration with Russia. In fact, Italy was also in support of India's membership to the Wassenaar arrangement and to the Australia group as well. So there are very mixed vibes that we are getting from Italy, because on some things they are supporting us and on the other things they are against us. Also, the article mentioned about Italy-India strategic partnership in energy transition. Now, let me tell you what exactly is this. Now, this is a kind of a partnership that the two countries have made to take advantage of new discoveries in green energy. The two sides have tried to collaborate on bringing in new technologies which are environmental friendly and helping each other's nations in adopting those kind of technologies. Recently, the two sides, in fact, decided to make a joint working group to collaborate on multiple things such as smart city project, gas transportation and promoting natural gas as a bridge fuel, waste management, how to use waste, which is a major problem in India, and also to focus on green energies. In fact, in terms of green energy, the two sides have now considered working together to support a large size green corridor project in India to capitalize on India's target to produce and integrate 450 gigawatts of renewable energy by 2030. So this is an agreement which India and Italy are working together. As I said earlier, Italy is kind of a unique country for India. It is never at the top of our minds, but if you look at the strategic importance of Italy, it is a country of significance. For example, recently, Italy identified India as one of the top 5 priority countries for internationalization of business. Thus, Italy has acknowledged the economic importance of India, and they are also trying to improve our relationships. That is why there are now frequent visits between the two sides at the highest level. Also, you might not be aware that Italy has a considerable amount of Indians living in the country. I'll give you a fun fact. Just like Canada is to India, as in a lot of Indians want to go to Canada and want to settle there because they have a good community, that is what Italy is for Bangladesh. If you actually read more about this, every year thousands and lakhs of people from Bangladesh actually migrate to Italy. They have made Italy what India has made of Canada. They have a large diaspora in Italy, they have great relationship, and they think to have a better life and to earn more money, Italy is something that will be very favorable to them. There are many people of Bangladesh origin that you can actually see in Italy. Indian labor also actively engages in agriculture and dairy industry in Italy. So the two sides do collaborate on certain issues, although they do not come at the top of our mind as being natural partners. The next article is about the next phase report of the National Family Health Survey number 5 being released recently by the Union Health Minister. Now, although it is an important report, but it has so many numbers, it is just not possible to remember each and every number. So let's focus on a few headlines which are more important in terms of where Indian society is heading. This phase of the National Family Health Survey says that the total fertility rate of India has declined even further. That is, the average number of children per woman in India has now declined further to reach 2.0 at the national level. It was 2.2 in the National Family Health Survey number 4. In the 5th survey, it has reached 2. There are only 5 states in India right now: Bihar, Meghalaya, Uttar Pradesh, Jharkhand, and Manipur, which have a fertility rate of over 2.1, which is considered as a replacement level of fertility. Apart from these, all the states in India have a fertility rate of below 2.1. Now, 2.1 is considered as a level at which the population stabilizes. If your fertility rate is above 2.1, that means the population is increasing. If it is below 2.1, that means the population is declining. So at an all India level, we have reached below this replacement rate of fertility, except the 5 states. There are other good signs also. Institutional births have increased from 79 to 89%. Institutional births means pregnancies that are happening in hospitals or places where they are supervised by doctors. In rural areas also, it has reached 87%, which is a very, very positive sign. About three-fourths of children between the age of 12 and 23 months are fully immunized, which is again a very good sign as compared to only 62% in the fourth installment of this survey. So almost every indicator in the society is improving except a few. Now let me tell you what are the ones where India is not improving. The biggest one where India is not improving is obesity. In fact, there has been a rise in obesity when you see the survey number 5 as compared to survey number 4. At the national level, obesity increased from 21 to 24% amongst women and 19 to 23% amongst men. In fact, in many states, over one third of women are in the obese category. These states include Kerala, Manipur, Delhi, Tamil Nadu, Puducherry, Punjab, Chandigarh, Goa, Sikkim. So, a lot of very well to do states, a lot of states that you would say are advanced, they are the ones who are falling under this category, which is a cause of concern because it is a very, very dangerous non communicable disease which can lead to a lot of complications in the human body. Now, as I said, because this kind of a report is filled with data, you cannot really remember all of that, but focus on the important ones. For example, focus on this graph of how exactly is the fertility rate in India decreasing. Focus on some other issues such as how obesity is increasing because that is a standout feature, and this will be more important for the examinations. Now, from this entire report, there are some key indicators that I have taken to show you. This entire table had about 130 indicators. Now you know why I'm telling you it is not possible to remember all of them. So I have taken a snippet of the first 24 just to give you an idea about how the numbers are improving as compared to 5 or 6 years back. For example, the female population of age 6 years or above who ever attended school increasing. Population below the age of 15 years, again, that is also a number that is improving as compared to last National Family Health Survey. There is data about marriage, fertility, etc. If you're still interested in knowing data about a certain indicator, you can always go online and download this report from the Ministry of Health website. It's not a very long report, but just that it has a lot of data which might not be easy for you to remember. Also, just to give you a bit of information about the National Family Health Survey itself, this is the fifth installment of the survey that is ongoing and it is conducted in different phases. The first phase was conducted in 1992-93. It had collected information about population, health, nutrition with emphasis on women, young children, etc. Then the second family health survey came up in 1998-99, in which at that time the 26 states of India were added and the quality of health, family planning, etc. were taken up. The third survey came up in 2005-6, where a lot of research organizations were included, and India in fact got support from USAID, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, UNICEF, etc. Even today, when these surveys are conducted, we do get technical and financial support from these organizations outside India as well. The fourth installment was carried out in 2014-15. This was the first of this series in which data was collected in all of then India's 29 states and 7 union territories. This is the number of that year. Obviously, this number has changed now. Also, the fourth phase was the first time where it provided estimates of most indicators at the district level also at all 640 districts across the country. And the fifth survey is still ongoing in different phases. These were the important articles we wanted to discuss from the Hindu newspaper today. Now a couple of practice questions. Number 1. Identify the roadblocks delaying the signing of India-EU Free Trade Agreement. How can the two sides work around these roadblocks? Second, elaborate on the progress made by India in declining its total fertility rate in the past couple of decades. How does it impact the demographic dividend of India in the years to come? Both these questions have to be answered within 250 words each. Thank you so much for watching the video.